Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. I hope the day is going well, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you for joining me. As always, where you can see, I'm delighted to say, joined by James Benge. It feels like a long, long time, mate. We were just saying off camera since we've done one of these. How have you been? You been good?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a long, long time. I've been very well. Kind of broadly checked out of Arsenal on my honeymoon. I say broadly. I had a real experience not watching the second leg of the semi-final. We were in Fiji. Weirdly, I timed the flight perfectly, so we landed in Fiji, and we'd be in this waiting area, and I judged it perfectly. All I needed was Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi doesn't come. Then we get on a boat to go to our hotel. The Wi-Fi finally comes genuinely at the minute that Ashraf Hakimi scores for PSG. And with that, I pretty much was like, yeah, bye football. I will see you again next season with a little pop in. Yeah, I feel like I haven't missed much.
No, you say you've been checked out. I think pretty much everyone over here has been checked out since the full-time whistle blew, or actually probably since Hakimi scored that goal in Paris. That was when pretty much everyone was checked out. God, that's true. We haven't spoken since then, have we? It has been a long, long time. Before we get onto that, was honeymoon everything you hoped it would be? I mean, off gallivanting around, I don't know, how many countries did you visit?
4 countries,
Nice.
5 stops. Yeah, it was well. I mean, that's the wife, I suppose, but I really enjoyed it. We spent some time in Fiji in particular. It was wonderful. It was my first time in Australia as well, which is so cool. I mean, you've been you spent quite a while in Oz, didn't you?
I lived in Oz for a year. I've been, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. Got family over there. I love it. I would
Beautiful.
move to Australia if I could convince my wife. Well, I wouldn't, but I think that if there was one country I would move, I would leave England for, it would probably be Australia. I just had the best times. I love it. I love Fiji as well, by the way. I've been there, and that's a fantastic place.
Yeah, Sydney. We only stayed in Sydney, and we were only there for 4 nights. Had a little bit of a moment walking around Bondi Beach where the wind just picked up, and we were like, we might die here. I mean, yeah, if you get the chance, I'd always been really suspicious about Australia. I always think it's like, every animal there's going to kill you. Everything's going to bite you, and it's hot and arid, but it's not, is it? It's wonderful. I loved it to bits, and like you, I would be very tempted to live there if only were in any way feasible to keep up with Arsenal from there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrified, like beyond terrified of spiders. I have serious arachnophobia, and that was always the thing with Australia. But to be fair, I mean, I spent a load of time there. There's a few spider stories, but not masses of them. It's not like you. The first time you go over there, you think they're going to be crawling on every wall you look at. You're going to have like killer spiders everywhere. It's not like that. But I did. I had a moment where I got rescued by a lifeguard in Surfers Paradise. It never happened at Sydney, like Bondi Beach and stuff. We used to go around to Bronte Beach where the waves were massive, and we had some good times there. But Surfers Paradise. So my first day actually at Surfers, and I went out. I hired a board from my youth hostel. We will get to Arsenal in a bit, by the way, people. And I went out and I got caught in a riptide, and my mates were with me, like right next to me, and they caught a wave in, and I slid down the back of the wave, and then all of a sudden, within literally about 30 seconds, I was so far out to sea on my boogie board thing, and they had the loudspeaker. The lifeguard was like, "You at the back? Can you come in, please?" And I was like, "You kidding, mate? If I could, I would, but I literally can't." And at that point, I jumped off my board and was throwing it in the air to try and get attention. And I got back on the board thinking, yeah, it's a bad idea because I swallowed a load of water. Anyway, long story short, I got surfed in by the lifeguard. He came out and rescued me. There was a big crowd of people like applauding the lifeguard and laughing at this bedraggled English kid getting dragged out of the ocean in his first. And it sat down on the towel, and a jellyfish fell out my shorts.
Oh my God.
How English could I be? Honestly, how English could I be? Anyway,
presuming you were sunburnt at the time as well.
Yeah, I was. After a day, I was. But yeah, aside from that, wonderful country. So yeah, you haven't missed much football-wise. Southampton was very. Oh, you were back for that anyway. But you're working covering the Chelsea Notts Forest game, weren't you? But it was an easy. Well, it was classic end of season stuff. I say easy. It took a late goal to win it, but it was as final day of season match as you could possibly get. But we did have a lovely moment of Kieran Tierney scoring his goal on his final Arsenal appearance, which I think the whole trip to Southampton, was worth it, to see the look on his face when he scored that goal and the little run back to and the little moment he shared with the fans afterwards. Just brilliant.
I thought that was really lovely because there's almost a sense, because Kieran's going home, and I think because it's been a tough 6 years that since he's joined, that maybe like you could be forgiven for thinking he didn't have that like deep affection for Arsenal, and I think all of it came through in that goal, didn't it? And it was really lovely to see. I love it when players get to sign off in style as well. Yeah, it was maybe, I think, kind of when you look at the arc of Kieran's career in Arsenal, you kind of think, oh God, there could have been so much more. But a great servant, a player that was really part of so many of the good times in the first 3 or so years of his contract, and really talented footballer, great guy, and obviously someone the fans absolutely love as well.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about it earlier today, and I was like, it's quite, in a way, I mean, he would have gone last summer had he not got that injury for Scotland in the Euros. He would have gone last summer, and there would have been no goodbye. You know, it was away with Sociedad, and then he would have come back. He wouldn't have played in pre-season. Yeah, he would have gone. But that injury, as frustrating as it was, and he's lost another chunk of his career because he sat on the sidelines for 6 months. It at least allowed him to have this sort of 6-month goodbye after he got back from the injury, worked his way back into the first team, played some games. You know, had that thing with the fans. He got the Newcastle game at home last week where he got, you can see how touched he was by the reception he got when he came on. Then he got his big moment at Southampton. So as frustrating as that injury was for him, and I'm sure it was, but it still did allow him to have this sort of 6-month long goodbye that he wouldn't have been able to have in the first place. And he was, that's the start. He was such a beacon of light, I think, at that when he first arrived, because we've been used to such dross defensively for such a long time. And then that was the kind of start, he came in, and although there was still dross around him at that time defensively, he was just that beacon of light. This is a guy we can all get behind. He plays football the way we want to. We want our defenders to play, proper old school throwback type stuff, getting forward, exciting to watch, exhilarating, and getting down the wings. And we could all just sort of latch onto that a little bit, wasn't it? And I think that's why it was just so popular. And despite all their injuries, because a lot of times when the players get injured, fans lose patience with them, don't they? Because it's just, you want your players available, and when they're not playing, you just kind of see it with Tomiyasu now. There's sympathy for him, but there's also a lot of frustration about him and the fact he's not fit and all that. I see it in the comments, I see it on social media. Tierney never really had that. He had such a rapport with the fans that frustration of him not being available for so much of his time at Arsenal because of injury was never really there. And yeah, I thought it was a really nice moment, and certainly the big, from an Arsenal point of view anyway, the big talking point from the final day of the season. Although it was quite funny to see Mikel sitting next to Josh Kroenke in the stands, and just the camera going to them constantly. I had this screen next to me showing the game in the press box, and like every time I looked at the screen, it was Josh Kroenke and Mikel Arteta. Like they were determined to get as much of that screen time as possible. And they were never really speaking to each other, to be fair, during the actual thing, but it was quite funny to see them and all together. And Arteta was speaking about it in the press conference afterwards. When it's just like, it starts now, basically. Tomorrow we've got meetings. Josh was at the women's parade or the trophy lifting yesterday. Arteta was saying there's also going to be meetings over the next 48 hours with him, Andrea, everyone like that. And obviously front and centre of that is a striker. Now we're going to talk about this in today's show. I know everyone's spoken about Sesko and Gyökeres a lot, but I really let me just flick through. These are some questions that I pulled together. They're all long questions, so I don't really want to go read them all. But we've got like Fraser here talking about Gyökeres and about Sesko and the sort of difference in the two of them, who would be better, that sort of stuff. Vet Para's got in touch as well and is talking about it. He says, I'm hoping James settles the Gyökeres-Sesko debate with an amazing stat, like the set piece one conceded with Big Gabby. That was a brilliant stat, by the way.
That
was a very, very good stat. It really surprised me that. And so, yeah, you're officially going to end you're being asked to end the Sesko-Gyökeres debate as well. We've got one here from Callum, who talks about it as well, talking about Sesko being the younger, would have 2 or 3 contracts in him. Gyökeres obviously the more sort of ready-made, ready-to-go striker, the lot split. So there's just so many questions about all 3 of them, or 2 of them, sorry. And so we're going to talk about that today. Like, we were sitting in the press room before. Who was it? It was me, James, Gunnerblog, Sai, Sam, Isan. We're all there at Southampton in the press room, and we had a big old debate on this, like going around the table. So who do you want? Sesko or Gyökeres? Who would be better? Who would be your pick if you could have a choice of the two? So before we really get into it, I'm going to ask you that very question. Who, if you can only sign one this summer, which let's face it, you can't. Arsenal can. They're not going to sign both.
Yeah.
Who would you sign?
I presume you won't let me debate the premise of this question.
What do you mean?
I don't really. I think the answer should be neither. But
Oh really? Oh, what were you talking about? Alexander Isak? You talking about?
Well, others. There are. I don't like. There are others I could think of, Lautaro. Okay. But let's just.
Right, let's scrap that because I think we should probably agree if Arsenal are going to sign a striker this summer, it's probably going to be one of these two.
Yeah.
So take your thoughts on.
So I will answer the question.
Yeah.
I think it should be Gyökeres. I think we have to sort of this transfer. I think almost exists and should be judged entirely differently from so many other deals, because this isn't even about whether that player has a great Arsenal career. This is just about whether Arsenal win the title or the Champions League in the next. I think it's probably reasonable to say 2 to 3 seasons. There will hopefully Arsenal can hope that there's a much longer period where they're at the top of their game. But right now, the window's open.
Is it 2 to 3 seasons or is it next season?
It might even be less. Exactly. Yeah. It's certainly a short. This is about, can Arsenal win the title in the short term? So it's Gyökeres for me. There is always the doubt about how much output in the Portuguese league translates into the Premier League. We've seen that with someone like Darwin Núñez. He can score a lot of goals in Portugal and then not quite do the same in England. But Gyökeres is scoring the goals. What is he on? 39. He ended the season on in Portugal. So, I think Sesko could well be have the better career than Gyökeres. But I think Sesko's timeline probably sees him peak in more like the 4-5 year range, and he could be great before then. But I think you kind of got to think, when do we think this player is going to be great? And for Sesko, it's a little further down the line, I think.
So you don't think Sesko? He scored 26 goals this season. Sesko, one in two, basically, club and country, 1 in 2. But
a lot of them were not in the Bundesliga or in the Champions League. And I think Gyökeres played really well in the Champions League. Is the other thing that I've got as a tick in his box that eases those Portugal to England doubts. I just think right now he's a bit more like a finished article. And I feel like he's a known commodity. The fact he also knows England, not the Premier League, but England, means he can kind of jump in a bit more and adapt a bit more quickly, I would hope. So, while, as I've obviously made clear from the top of this, I'm not hugely enamored with either of the options. I think they're both good players, really good players that will make Arsenal's squad better. I would go for Gyökeres. What about you?
Can I sit on the fence? I think I agree with you, basically. And I've been back and forth over this an awful long time. Basically, I don't care. I don't really care who it is. I will happily have either of them. And I think both will be really exciting signings. There's a nagging doubt in the back of my head that if Arsenal don't sign Sesko, that in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, we are sitting here in the exact same situation we are with Alexander Isak. Like James Gunnerblog, he spoke about this. He spoke about it to us in the press room on Sunday, but he also spoke about it on the Arsecast with Andrew, which I was listening to earlier, this week's Arsecast. And he was talking to a current sporting director in Europe, unnamed. And he said in that conversation that Benjamin Sesko will be the best striker in the world in the next few years. The sporting director said to him. But then he also said that he thought that the sporting director said he also thought that Arsenal would sign Gyökeres, not Sesko. And my nagging fear is that we miss out on Sesko and he becomes an absolute superstar, which I think he's absolutely got the tools to do. He's kind of got everything. The one thing that is the sort of cross against his name at the moment is his decision making. But he's a 21-year-old, so of course he's going to have that next to him because that's going to come as you play more. But so much more to his game is very, very good. So I think the groundswell of opinion amongst Arsenal fans, certainly when I look at comments on here and across my pages, seems to be that Gyökeres is definitely. I think you'd probably get 70% Gyökeres, 30% Sesko if you asked him at the moment. So I think Sesko, if it was him, he'd come in and have a bit of pressure on him as well, because he's probably not the majority's pick for who the striker should be, whether that would bother him or not. I was just reading, he was doing an interview today, I think, Sesko, or the quotes have gone out today in Germany to Sport, and he was asked about his future and about Leipzig. He says, the club has given me a lot and continues to give me a lot every day. It's a great club to develop at. I want to play for a club that suits me, that brings the best out of me. That's the most important thing. Currently a player for Leipzig, so I'm taking it day by day. If a transfer happens and it doesn't, then it doesn't. But that is interesting. I want to play for a club that suits me, that brings the best out of me. That's the most important thing. That's quite interesting, because that was very much why the decision was taken last summer to stay at Leipzig. Him and his agents, they felt like it was, we need to stay, want to continue development. We don't want to pick the wrong club and then development sort of flatlines a little bit. So yeah, I think I agree with you. I think because of, it's interesting, that sort of short-term thinking of win now, you've got a year. Can the club really, like, we think like that, everyone from outside thinks like that, but if you're investing so much money in a new signing, can you really think like that? Can you think we have to sign this guy because he's the guy who wins it for us this season? Or is it like, well, we're spending huge amounts of money, we're probably not going to be able to, we won't buy another striker for a while after we spend this money? Or do we get the one that maybe's got more of an upside over the next 4 or 5 years? It's really interesting. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that office when they're debating it.
I mean, I find it such a fascinating call, because it's one we don't have really in English football that much. It's over the last, getting on for, I think, 10 years now, I think there's been a real sort of fetishization of young players and resale value, and the idea of, if Sesko's a star, he could go to Real Madrid, say, and net 200 million. And if he's a flop, you'll still get your money back. Not that I think, kind of for the reasons you're saying, I don't really feel like he's going to be, he would be a flop. And also just the nature of sort of a big six means you can, in theory, you need to sort of plan to continually compete. Whereas, if you kind of involve Josh Kroenke in this, his experience with the KSE's other sports franchises would be like, you find your window and you smash your way through it. And I do wonder a little bit if we're heading in that direction in football. You sort of see how Liverpool sort of really, last season in particular, kind of just handed the keys over to Salah, and they're not like kind of trying to move on from that core until they all retire. So I do kind of feel like no one will be sympathetic 3 years down the line if Arsenal win the title next season and then Gyökeres has got too old and that he's not the player he was. I don't think people will be sympathetic, but I still I will do my best to then remember what I'm saying now of like, if you make this signing and Victor Gyökeres has a major impact on you winning the Premier League or the Champions League, then I kind of have to turn around and then go, okay, don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about the fact that you didn't get Sesko and that he's now banging them in for Liverpool or whoever, because you got your title. And I know that kind of, in England, people want, that to be a title every year, but that's always going to be hard. I just think right now, where Arsenal are, you've got to kind of almost every decision has to be angled to what gives us the best chance of getting across the line next season. And, if that means a couple of slightly tougher years after that, I can live with it.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like we were saying just before, we were like, well, we were talking about Chelsea, not in Forest. We were talking about Chelsea celebrating 4th place, which, by the way, I don't have an issue with. Fair play to them that they got 4th place. But, you've got a team there that spent £1 billion in the last couple of years, absolutely celebrating for a 4th place finish. And then you've got Arsenal, who finished 2nd again. And, the knives are absolutely out for them. So they're in that, they've through their sheer consistency of just missing out, they've managed to put themselves in a position now, Arsenal, where basically everything seems to be, it has to be short-term thinking. You've got to basically win next year or that's it. It is explosion, project ripped up, everything has gone wrong. And yet you've got teams who have spent far more money than them recently celebrating getting 4th. And so they're in that. It's just that short-term thinking now. It's like you said, it's a really fascinating outlook, I think, in terms of what Arsenal are going to do. I look at these two players, by the way, and I do think that Sesko fits the system best out of the two of them.
Mm.
And that's not me saying I want Sesko, but I do look at the system that Arteta plays, and I look at how he wants his sort of central nine to play. And I do think Sesko is more suited to that. Maybe if you do go out and sign Gyökeres, you kind of have to change things a little bit, because he loves to drift out to the left, and certainly a lot more than the number 9 does. And Sesko likes to drop deep, kind of like Havertz does. So that's why it feels like he might be the better fit if the system stays the same. But it's very hard to ignore the sheer weight of goals that Gyökeres has, isn't it? It's just, it comes back to that. And I watched it. Did you see his penalty in the 99th minute at the cup final at the weekend?
I didn't see it, because I sort of saw all the tweets just being like, he's so composed as he was taking it. And
99th minute, literally 1-0 down. You got to score to take you extra time, and he didn't place it into a cycle. He rifled it into the side netting. It was such a brilliant penalty. He has scored 19 of his goals have been penalties this season.
That's a worry.
Is that a worry?
Well, I mean, Arsenal generally, if you kind of look at it, don't need people to take penalties. They take their penalties generally quite well. I know everyone's thinking right now about Saka and the Bernabeu, but they do have a good record on penalties.
I don't think we had a penalty at home all season. I'm sure it's
just that is yet another of the. I feel like you could do a whole book of just the sort of stupid statistics from this season that tell you everything about why it went wrong. So there you go. That's your book for this season.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to make sure you're sort of factoring it into your analysis for sure.
Martin Odegaard had one against Man United in the FA Cup, didn't he? It might be in the league that we didn't have one. I remember Odegaard missed that one in the cup, didn't he?
Yeah, and then obviously they had many more penalties in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely do need to count in penalties, because there's not even a guarantee that Gyökeres would come and take them. Although, based on what you're telling me about that one in the cup final, I would be pretty happy trusting him to do so. But you need to be sort of careful to not over prioritize them. And I mean, that's why that's the doubt you would have about Gyökeres, is like a lot of penalties are swelling those numbers, which are being put up in the Portuguese league. And we know that doesn't always translate that well. And then with Sesko, you'd have younger, and the goals have come, but maybe not in the Bundesliga as frequently. And he'd have to learn a new league, and you need someone to hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. And it feels like if this market were transposed to last summer, Arsenal might just do the whole we won't do anything tactic, because actually there's no one available that you're like, we've got to have him. He will change our team. But I think now we've got to the stage with Arsenal where it's like, well, you can't wait forever. You can't wait another 2 years until you can force the issue on Alexander Isak. You've got to go and get someone, and you've got to take a gamble. And I can't really Lautaro is the only other name that came up, but I don't particularly think he's likely to. I've not heard anything that says he's be available.
There's only Watkins. You remember, obviously we bid for him not long ago. It's only Watkins. I think Fraser mentions him in this one. Where is it? Let me find it. It says Watkins, unbelievably underwhelming for majority of the fan base because he's not the shiny new toy, but he guarantees you goals. And if either of the above hit the amount of PL goals Watkins hit, I think we'd be happy. So he talks about that. And obviously Aston Villa missing out on Champions League. We know PSR is an issue for them. So he potentially could come back onto the market and could be an opportunity. So there is him, I suppose. 6 months ago, Arsenal were trying.
Yeah, I mean, he's sort of held firm a little bit, but I don't think he was quite the player this season that he was the previous one. And I think that's why he started to lose his place. Obviously still very talented, very good, but the goals slowed down a bit. The shot number was down a little bit. I mean, that would be the worry about him. I don't think he's a lock either, and he's 29 and a half now. So with him, you are really going for the one season swing. And Buemo, I saw mentioned there as well. He's just had a great finishing season. That's really good.
But he does play on the right hand side mainly, doesn't he? He does play on the right hand side mainly. So I don't really as much. I think he's a really good player, and I think he'll get a move. He'll go somewhere this summer. I'd be surprised if it's Arsenal. I just think if he was a left-sided option, I think that yes, but
Yeah.
just the fact he's right-sided and we've got a certain Bukayo Saka playing there already, and Ethan needs minutes. I don't see Mbeumo.
Yeah, there is no one I think is gettable that I desperately want. And my sort of sneaky prediction is that I think Jamie Carragher said this as well, that Kai Havertz will be Arsenal's starting striker sort of midway through, or in the back end of this season and this coming season. It wouldn't surprise me at all. That's kind of the other thing I have that I like about Gyökeres. I could see those two fitting together. If
They're
you play
different, aren't
Gyökeres,
they?
yeah, you could play them together. You could play Gyökeres off the left in some games if you gave him like an overlapping fullback. It's really fun talking about it, but it's one of those ones where you think if you're Andrea Berta and you're Mikel Arteta, this decision is going to define your, not quite your tenure if you're Mikel Arteta, but it'll define the next few years. And
it's
the
so
fear
big
of getting it wrong.
Yeah, it's such a big decision. It's felt like the last 2 years have kind of built up to this summer and this moment, because let's face it, again, this season Arsenal got the best defence in the Premier League by a fair while. Again, your goalkeeper's got a Golden Glove award. It's clear why Arsenal haven't managed to get over the line the last couple of years, because they just haven't had enough going forward. I mean, the ingredients is there, and everyone is looking at this decision as well, not just us as Arsenal reporters, fans. The whole English media is looking at this decision. Who are Arsenal going to get? Who is going to be the striker? And you're right. It absolutely defines how things go over the next couple of years. I think it is such a big decision. I think that's why there's so much debate about it. And I'm going back to Vet Para here, who says, I'm hoping James settles the Gyökeres Sesko debate.
No, I wish I could.
I don't think we have. We've talked about it. We're coming up to nearly half an hour now.
Look, if I could settle the Gyökeres debate, as much as I'd like to put that then out on YouTube, if I had the answer, you don't think I'm going down to Highbury House to Andrea Berta and saying, no, I actually have the answer here. £1 million, it's yours.
And take his job if you had the answer.
God, that job is it's a brutal job this summer. You're Andrea. Good luck, Andrea Berta, because we all expect a title or a Champions League, but ideally both.
I'll take one, mate. I will take one.
Yeah,
I'm just looking further down. Vet Para's gone for Sesko there at the bottom. I'm leaning to Sesko as he's more like Havertz, stronger aerially, and I suspect more accustomed to playing with his back to goal. Yeah, it is a big one. Right, let's move on, because we have spoken a lot of time about this, and I wanted to, obviously the end of the season has come about now, and so we're going to do some player of the season chat. I've got quite a few questions and comments as well that I want to get through before we wrap this one up. So we'll do this one relatively quickly. I think next week, mate, I think we'll do our end of season awards, which is always fun. I've had people asking for it already, so we'll do some end of season awards. But just for pure player of the season now, let's go for it. I am going to go first on this one. I asked who you're going to go for, and you've given a different answer to me, which works well. So we're not going to the same player. So Gabriel is my pick for my Arsenal player of the season. I know he hasn't played, and I know in that time that he's not played for a while, like Declan Rice has had this amazing end to the season, which has certainly put him into the reckoning. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if Declan Rice gets the vote because of how the season's gone and the timing wise and all that sort of stuff. But for me, Gabriel has just been, I just think he's been superb this season. Like he's kind of been in the shadows a little bit because of William Saliba's emergence over the last couple of years, but he has, jumped out of those shadows now massively, and when my view is the leader of that defense. I think the fact that what's gone on since he's left, and the stat that you brought out there in terms of the set piece goals, 8 goals we conceded from set pieces since Gabriel has been out, which is only eight games, I think, or something. 40%. It's a remarkable stat. So in terms of his influence in both boxes on set pieces, huge. He's a leader. Saliba sat there and spoke to us in that press conference not so long ago, and basically fully admitted to us that Gabriel's had a much better season than him, and he looks at him as his leadership qualities, and looks as a player to really look up for. He listed him as one of the top 2 centre backs in world football at the moment. So I just think he's been brilliant, and even before the injury, he was my pick, and I don't think I can really change that just because he's missed the last sort of 2 months of the season or 6 weeks of the season, whatever it is. So he's my player of the season. Jurriën Timber is absolutely up there in my reckoning as well. I think he's been fabulous. I love that quote from Arteta the other day saying we didn't just sign a player, we signed a leader, and it's absolutely right. He's been fantastic. David Raya, I think, has been absolutely great. Mars Lewis-Skelly deserves a mention for what he's done since he broke through to the team and the way he's handled it. So those are the sort of players that really stand out for me. But Gabriel edges it. He's my player of the season. What about you?
Yeah, I think we have the same top 5. And I was really tempted to put Gabriel number 1 and kind of surprised you did. Only because missed 10 games in the end in the Premier League. He certainly is. He tells
Robert Pires got named player of the season, and he missed the last sort of 6 weeks in 2002, and I thought that was absolutely deserving. He still deserved to win that award in 2002 despite missing the run-in. So that was my thinking of Gabriel.
Yeah, and I think you might actually be righter than I am. But I mean, I think probably we would have the same top 4 or top 5. Julian Timber, I was thinking about. No end. Everyone who watches this knows my love for him. Declan Rice in the last few, I kind of edged away from Declan Rice because you can't quite forget that he was a little bit off colour early in the season. I mean, he's been Arsenal's best player for months now, though. But I went for David Raya. Golden Glove winner again. I think the first goalkeeper in the Premier League era to win it back-to-back, something like that I saw. And he's had to be really good. Last season, he got the Golden Glove kind of because of the guys in front of him. And we remember he sort of started quite poorly, but really turned it around. But now they've got so many brilliant games. I know I said I checked out, but I did see a lot of the Newcastle game. Wonderful in that game, wasn't he? So many, like, especially early in the season, though, that the penalty against Atlanta, the double save from Watkins at Villa Park, the performance against Tottenham. It just sort of feels like Arsenal have really, for so many of those 1-0 wins and tight draws, Arsenal needed Raya to be world-class, and he has been. I think after Alisson, he's the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. It's really interesting when we talk about backup goalkeepers and Joan Garcia, and I'm seeing, I know by all accounts he's had a phenomenal season at Espanola, but I'm seeing all these like predicted 11s for next season, and David Raya's not in it, and I'm like, what team have you been watching this season? David Raya is world class. Yeah, it's been a real joy to see him flourish this season. He's so vital to the way Arsenal play as well. His ability to function almost as a third centre back, his long passing, and his composure as well. And he has really settled into life at Arsenal. Top quality. Iñaki Kanye, you've had some misses. This one's a smash hit.
Yeah, it's definitely a smash hit. He's been great, David Raya. Passing has left a bit to be desired in the last month or so. I don't know if it's kind of mental fatigue or whatever it is, but he's played himself into trouble a few times. Like the Newcastle game you mentioned, he was kind of getting himself out of hole in a couple of those.
Yeah.
Like he didn't help himself with some of his passes. But I agree. I think he's, on the whole, I think he's been exceptional this season and deserves an awful lot of credit. Like you said, last year, there was definitely that sort of argument, wasn't it? That he didn't have that much to do, wasn't facing many shots and all that, but you can't level that accusation at him this season. He's had a lot to do, and what he's done very, very well. So yeah, he would definitely be definitely in my top 5. Probably in my top 3. I reckon my top 3 would be Raya number 3, Timber number 2, and Gabriel number 1, I think.
I'm surprised you wouldn't have Rice in the top 3.
I just think Rice has been brilliant for 3 months, but he was way off par, but way below par before that. He was, and fair play to him to keep going because he was struggling. He looked knackered. Then he had the toe issue that which troubled him for a long, long time. But he was way off what we've seen for these like 3 months or so. I think the pure consistency over the course of the whole season, I think Timber, Raya, and Gabriel getting ahead of Declan Rice for me.
I mean, that would be my top 4. Yeah, I think probably. I'd swap right. No, I think, yeah, maybe it's close for me between. Well, no, they would be my top 4 with Rice 4th, Timber 3rd, and then I am really, really like tempted to come around to your way of thinking, but I'll stick with David Raya. But I mean, in a day or two, I might change my mind. Yeah, whenever they open the fan vote, if I will do the fan vote.
That must be pretty soon. That is going to open. I'd imagine. I haven't seen it yet, but I imagine.
What a joy that we actually get to have fan awards and all that, and we're not like a certain club in Manchester that has to. Just sort of at some stage, what are you going to do? Cancel it forever, like every single year. They're definitely not going to have one like when they have Mateus Cunha and whoever next sees Liam Delap. I don't think there'll be a level when they can be planning fan awards for their 12th place finish. So I think at some stage you need to accept where you are and celebrate what you've done, even if it's not where you used to be.
12th place finish, that's pushing it.
That would be huge. That'd be a brilliant improvement. I'd hammer him for manager of the season.
Right. Questions time. Let's going to go through some of these questions before we wrap this one up. I've got plenty to come from the YouTube channel. I'm going to ask a few off my the Inside Arsenal Patreon Discord page. First up, we got one from Pete. Says, can we get a fresh Benge Palace prediction for next season?
I'd be a bit more sensible this time.
FA Cup winners, mate. FA Cup winners. Right. So what are we going to do with this bet? What are we doing with this bet? Because technically you owe me 50 quid. But
right, it's going to the Arsenal Foundation, isn't
it? Yeah, I think if you give that £50 to the Arsenal Foundation, I will match it myself, and we'll donate £100 between us to the Arsenal Foundation. So we will get that done.
Yes,
because you lost, but I think I kind of lost as well because Palace went on and won the FA Cup. So you deserve some credit for that.
Well, in many ways, though, we're all winners because what a joy that was to see.
Absolutely brilliant. I was so happy. Fair play to Crystal Palace for that. Fantastic. So yes, honestly, it annoyed me so much. The immediate aftermath of that, though, the amount of tweets I saw saying Eddie Nketiah had to leave Arsenal to get a first major trophy.
Cup winners medal.
Exactly. It's like he already had one, but just ignore the facts. Let's just put
out. He could be the next Ashley Cole for all we know. He could be an FA Cup. Great.
I would wish him good luck if he did. Ollie says, no question, just a big congratulations to James. And good to see him back.
I'm going to go wild. I think there'll be Europa League semi-finalists. Is that wild enough, actually?
I don't think that is wild. I basically think an English team is going to win the Europa League pretty much every season from now on.
Yeah. Why not Palace? If Eze, can I caveat with if Eze stays, which wouldn't surprise me, I think Palace might win the Europa League. No money though.
Who else qualifies? Oh, I don't know. Unai Emery's in Europa League next season. We all know what that means. Apart from when he manages Arsenal, we all know what that means.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't know. I feel good about that team in the Europa League. One of the joys of my job, I'm gonna get to go and see some European nights at Selhurst Park. And I know that you kind of, because when we often when we cover Palace professionally under the lights at Selhurst Park, it doesn't end up well for Arsenal, but it is a really special atmosphere there.
Yeah. No, it's great to see them in Europe. I think I'm got a nice soft spot for Crystal Palace, so I'm very happy that they did that and beating Man City in the final was sort of topped it off as well. Right, we've got a couple of questions here from. I don't know what this is. GM Runs Game, who says thoughts on the Julian Alvarez links. Are they credible? Open to possibility of signing 2 strikers this summer? I had someone else here. Where is it? Marks is backing up previous comments. What are your thoughts on Julian Alvarez? Have you seen this? Julian Alvarez being linked? I think it was by Marca. I saw it popping up on my newsfeed. I haven't heard anything myself on it at the moment. I haven't really checked it out either at this stage because it's only just sort of been popping up. But it was one of those when I first saw it mentioned last time, I was like, surely not. That can't make much sense. He's been there a year. He's had a fantastic year. Why on earth would Atletico even be considering moving him on? I mean, I wouldn't say no to Julian Alvarez, I have to say. Would you?
I would be really intrigued by that. It'd be very different to what Arteta's kind of liked at striker so far, wouldn't he? I mean,
Gabriel Jesus in him. Jesus when he was fit and burst onto the scene at Arsenal.
Yeah. I would be really interested in that one. I think, if that did become an option, that would really tempt me. That would be really tempting. I love the work he does for the team as well, off the ball. He's a hard runner. He is someone that could play alongside Havertz. Kind of, if you see how Pep used him at City, although although the sort of centers of gravity of the team would change, you could kind of plug him in for Ødegaard as well, in the same way that Pep did when De Bruyne was out. It became more of a sort of front two. You could do things with Alvarez as well. I know he doesn't play on the left often as well, but I bet he could do that. that would be really interesting if it did happen. But I mean, like you, I mean, I literally hadn't even heard this rumor until
Yeah, I'm just
2
searching
minutes
for
ago.
it. I'm
So
just searching for it now. So Marca have reported that. Let me just find out what it says. It says these reports have been confirmed by Marca, who say that Arsenal and Liverpool are interested in a deal this year. Their information is that Arsenal are pushing the hardest for his signature, whose former Atletico sporting director Andrea Berta is operating. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's literally sort of just doing the rounds today, really. I mean, that would be a big money deal. What did they pay for him? They paid about 90 million, 80 million or something for him, didn't they? It was big money, and he's had a fantastic season. So surely that would be like, you're talking about 100 million plus for Alvarez. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on anyway. Right, a couple more from the Discord before we move on now. Martine says, will you guys been doing an end of season awards kind of thing? Excited extra time is back. Yes, we will, Martine. I think that'll be next year. KOH asked about, said he's heard that contract talks aren't going well with Miles Lewis-Skelly, and supposedly Real Madrid are sniffing around. Have you guys heard anything on this? I've not heard a thing on that, I have to say. I've heard whispers, not whispers sound as in information, but I've heard a few reports that Nwaneri's contract talks aren't going great, and that's why he might not be in the side in the end of the season. Again, that's totally unsubstantiated, but I haven't heard anything about MLS. I would suggest that's going to be one of the easiest contract renewals Arsenal are going to have to do this summer. Will be Lewis-Skelly. You got anything to add on that?
I would be really surprised, stunned. I don't think that would, like, from what I know of sort of Lewis-Skelly, he's a sensible kid who knows, like, this is a really good pathway for him at the moment. So I'd be very surprised. I mean,
the Ethan stuff's interesting. I think, like, I do wonder how tough that's going to. They've only got a year left, both of them now. You know, Ethan's got a year left. He didn't play much at the end of this season for whatever reason. Obviously, played against Southampton. We know how Ethan's agent operates and the moves he likes to get for his young players. And then you've got Max Dowman coming through, playing in a very similar position, albeit a couple of years younger than Ethan still. I think that's going to be one to, out of the two of them, I'd be keeping a closer eye on that situation rather than MLS's. Definitely.
But then, you know, I mean, Ethan's played something like 35 games this season.
He played a lot of games. Miles more than I thought he was going to.
Yeah, I don't think there can be any complaints on that front. And while you're absolutely right that Ethan's agent has proven himself willing to sort of make these negotiations or take these negotiations to the wire, as is often but not always a good idea for an agent, especially when they've got you know, a degree of leverage, to tend to end with a player signing for Arsenal if the player wants to stay at Arsenal. So
well, he's also got a attack agent, isn't he? So he's going to be busy this summer heading into London, can't he?
just get him an office there.
Yep. So Gunnar Greg was asked about that sort of contract talks. Any updates on Saka, Saliba, Gabriel, MLS, and Ethan? I mean, they're all sort of ongoing at the moment. I don't think anyone's like super quick, super ready to sign just yet, but hopefully that's something that will happen. Empire asks again. He says, massive congratulations to James. Welcome back. Says, other than a striker, what position do you feel we must strengthen this season? And just for fun, I'm not sure this is fun, by the way, Empire, this question. If you had to sell one of Saliba or Saka, who would it be? Don't think that's fun. It would be Saliba, by the way, for me. So, yeah, I think that was quite an easy answer for the pair of us. But, yeah, other than a striker, what position? If Arsenal could only sign 2 players this summer, what would it be the other position other than a striker for you?
Can I treat Zubimendi as done?
Yeah.
Left wing.
Yeah, same. Absolutely, 100%. Closely followed by another attacking midfielder, which I don't think I'm going to get my wish on that. But I would very much like to. Right, I've got a few more questions now before we wrap this one up. Bucklebury returns. There you go. So that's the name. Charles, could you and James give us your opinions on what would be an acceptable summer or an excellent one, as opposed to unrealistic? Which positions would you invest most money in, and which can we afford to get rotation prospects for? I see so many, if we don't get these exact players, everyone needs to be lynched comments floating around as if Liverpool, Chelsea and United in the Premier League aren't after strikers too, let alone the continental giants, and we can spend 1 billion willy-nilly. Ambition is one thing, but we need to be realistic. So, yeah, an acceptable summer. What would be my acceptable summer? Well, definitely a striker. That has to happen. As I said, left winger and necessity. Definitely have to sign a midfielder, but we know that's happening anyway because with Jorginho going, he absolutely needs to be replaced, and he will be by Zubimendi, barring any mad late change of heart from him. So those are the three. One. I mean, I would be very comfortable with Arsenal ignoring the defence at this point, and signing another attacking midfield option. I really feel like basically this summer just has to be about scoring goals and getting the best way of scoring more goals and adding creativity to this team. That's just what all my focus this summer would be on if I was in charge of Arsenal. Unfortunately, I'm not. So yeah, striker, absolutely. Left winger, absolutely. But then I'd just do a Hail Mary and get Eze in straight away as well. So that would be my acceptable summer. I know you mentioned not being unrealistic, and that's probably not. So I think we've got a question. Actually, I might leave it, but I might leave it until we get that question. But yeah, that would be mine probably. What about yours?
For me, I think it would be acceptable to get the sort of three positions that you've laid out there of left wing striker and midfielder, as long as it's really high quality.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the depth has been hurt, but you've kind of got to hope you don't get the injuries again. I think otherwise it's all there. I really like as well being asked about acceptable because I see so many at the moment. I don't know why on like my TikTok page. I know why, because I keep ingesting all their suffering. It's full of Manchester United fans, and they do this thing where it's like a realistic transfer window for Manchester United, and it's like sell Casemiro for 25 million, sell Rashford for 40 million. Now we've got 400 million to spend. Who should we spend it on? And I'm like, yeah, you guys have no concept of realistic. Some of it is also like just pure. I can't think what the right term is here, but you can't make too many deals. Your squad gets. You lose a bit of the balance in your dressing room and the makeup of your squad. And also just practically it's really hard and takes a long time to make a deal. So for me, acceptable would be 3 high grade new signings, Zubimendi, striker, left winger, and done quickly. Yeah. That would be the other really important thing. I don't want another on deadline day. I want to just clock off from Arsenal and be excited by who Chelsea are going to sign and never play.
If we end up doing another Raheem Sterling type deal, then something's gone drastically wrong in the window, and I do not want to be in that situation. So the acceptable summer has to sort of focus around the club not looking stupid at the end of it, like they kind of ended up doing with the Raheem Sterling thing. That when you get in that situation, something's gone pretty badly wrong. With those 3 players, then, when you're sort of looking at realistic summer, do you think someone needs to go? With those 3 players coming, I know Jorginho's going, but more talking about the striker and the left winger, because I'm of the opinion that I don't think that either Martinelli or Trossard need to be sold. I think I'd be keeping both of those and adding a striker and a left winger to it. Go on.
I know what Arsenal would say back to that. They say, "Oh, but we also have Gabriel Jesus."
I know Jesus kind of hangs over like a cloud, that injury and those wages at the moment. But I think Arsenal are in a good position PSR wise. Both with the Premier League and UEFA. I think they can bite the bullet and eat those wages for a season.
Yeah, exactly. It's 1 year. Yeah. And this has got to be the year.
Yeah.
So it's the year that you can sail a bit closer to the wind.
And it doesn't take much for those options to be stretched. Even with 2 new signings coming in, it doesn't take much for those options to suddenly, as we've found out this season, So I just would not be in a rush, especially as Trossard and Martinelli, to be fair, can both play across the front line as well. You've just got to have real strength and depth next season if you're Arsenal. So, and I think I don't think it's unrealistic to keep both of those and add the striker and left winger. I think that's sensible.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd love that left winger to be Rodrigo.
A lot of people don't agree with you on that. I do. I really like Rodrigo, and I'm a big fan of his. I love how he steps up in big games at times. I think he's got a real personality about him. I think he's ready to get away from Real Madrid and kind of explode. Did you see Alonso's quotes yesterday at the unveiling? I know Alonso's not going to sit there and say we've got to sell him, but he was like, we need him. We'll keep him. But I think if he becomes, and this has kind of been my stance on it, if Madrid make it known that he's on the market, I think if you're Arsenal, you absolutely have to enter that conversation.
Yeah, It's a once in a generation sort of level quality of player being available. It's a bit like the sort of Özil Di Maria window 10 years ago. This won't happen that often, but if they come up, you go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. The Özil Di Maria window as well. Right. High 5004 talks about Manchester City, saying, "Do you see City as a threat next season?" For me, no, and I'll tell you why. I think everyone can read that. I don't really want to go through the entire sort of explanation, but actually, I suppose I will for people on podcasts. So Reinders was not even in the conversation of midfielders who could play for City a few months ago. What's changed? Pep has been found out, and teams have been able to exploit him due to his lack of interest in adjusting tactics. Club World Cup is going to be a stinker for City, considering the amount of minutes such as Guardiola has played. There's an injury waiting to happen there. The best replacement for KDB was Wirtz, and he's now pulled out. Next season, they lack the killer pass, and it's going to make Haaland look like Jackson if Haaland can't get the service.
That's harsh on everyone.
Those are the reasons why High does not see Manchester City as a threat. Do you see City as a threat next season?
Not a great threat, especially with the business Liverpool are doing. I look at them as the number one team.
Scary
because of the only point I massively agree with though is number 3. I just think it with City in particular, it's catching up. Like so many of those players have huge numbers of minutes in their legs, and like maybe Gundogan goes, but Bernardo is still going to be a key figure, and he's looking older, and Diaz as well. There's a lot of players there that have looked quite tired and are not getting a summer off. Massively agree as well on the Wirtz thing. I don't understand why, if you're the richest club in the world, you don't go and buy the best young player in the world. I think Reinders is good. I would definitely think that one thing I would say about Pep is he does enjoy adjusting his own tactics, but I think to an extent, like you've got to have the right group of players for it. I think they'll certainly be top 4, and I certainly could imagine them being in the title race, but I'm a bit more nervous about Liverpool given the moves they're making.
Yeah, I think Liverpool's certainly going to start the season as favourites. I do wonder on Wirtz, whenever I see stories emerge from the sort of local pack up there or around a club saying they've decided to pull out because they feel the cost of the deal is too much and all that sort of stuff, it does reek of, yeah, we've been turned down. Let's put out that we've decided against it type thing. So I'm a bit suspicious about City pulling out the way they supposedly have because of the price of the deal. It feels more.
I believe that was the initial line on Declan Rice, wasn't it?
Yes, that was the
line on Declan Rice, and Arsenal are willing to pay more.
Yeah, that was definitely the line on Declan Rice. You're going to have to be like an honorary Liverpool fan next season, aren't you? With Frimpong and Wirtz playing for them.
Oh man, I love that so much, and Frimpong too. Yeah, it's going to be really tough for me.
That's a hell of a signing, Wirtz, isn't it? That is an unbelievable piece of business. I was not expecting that. I have to say, not expecting them to be able to pull that off.
The only thing I have is with Kirkes as well. I'm intrigued, let's say, about who's going to do the defending.
Like, you've got Van Dijk sitting in the back.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Van Dijk kind of leaving it. If I was leaving it to anyone sort of on his own, it'd be Virgil van Dijk. But I think there's going to be tactical headaches for Arne Slot. It feels to me like Liverpool have seen all these, like Frimpong is going for a song, isn't he? And actually, I think Wirtz at 100 million is a pretty good deal. It sort of feels like they're buying the players and working out how they'll fit together later. So maybe slow start to the season, or maybe not.
No, I fear the latter. I think Liverpool are going to be a hell of a tough nut to crack next season. Curtis asked about the academy. Says it's going to be last season Arsenal seemed to make a concerted effort at academy level to bring in several youth international quality players. Do you expect that to continue? Or was it just because of the excessive exits last season? No, I do expect that to continue. That's definitely a thing the club are targeting. Like last season was kind of the start of it, really, the start of a new phase of their sort of recruitment academy-wise, and I fully expect. In fact, I know that is an area they're looking to continue investing in the next few years. So yeah, I'm not sure you need to add much to that, do you, mate?
No, exactly. You're exactly right.
Ben, another one to offer his congratulations to you, mate. Says, as the transfer window hots up, do you think we're in for any surprise transfers this year? Now, this is what I was kind of waiting for on the positions you'd strengthened question earlier on. There are a lot of names doing the rounds, but I wondered if you thought we'd get an out of the blue type signing. I don't mind if we don't, because I like a lot of the names mentioned, but it's always fun to get a surprise. See, when I'm talking about a kind of an attacking midfielder, this is the sort of surprise signing that I really kind of hope we get, because I think they'll sign a striker. I think they'll sign a winger. I know they'll sign a midfielder. I'm pretty confident they'll sign a goalkeeper. But I would love them to pull a Fabio Vieira type signing out in one of these positions. Obviously, more successful one than Fabio Vieira, but I would love them, and it would be that would be the position that I would love a surprise transfer just to come out of the blue that kind of says to us all, we really want to fix the attack. We really just want to add a bit of stardust, magical X factor, whatever you want to call it, to the attack. So it's not just about the left winger. It's not just about a striker. We're going to have another option in the centre to really sort of take us to the next level this season.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening, mate.
I don't think it's happening at all.
But I have to, I mean, you're completely right. And one thing about Arsenal under Mikel Arteta is they're very good at this surprise signing. It never happened under Emery or even later years Wenger after the Sol Campbell thing. Just the nature of football media, it's really hard to keep things secret. But Arsenal do a very good job of that. And that's why you've had multiple signings. Vieira, Matt Ryan.
That's one for the history books.
I've literally the first time I can ever remember covering Arsenal, and the first we knew of a deal was the announcement. And I can't tell you how happy people at Arsenal were about that. I almost wonder if they made the deal because of that.
They were celebrating. They were celebrating that one, weren't they? I remember. I was actually sitting where I'm sitting right now when that announcement came out that they'd signed Matt Ryan. It's someone on WhatsApp. I think it was Mark Man Bryan's messaging in the Arsenal group in WhatsApp, like, bloody hell, they've just announced signing Matt Ryan. I was like, what? You're kidding? Totally out of the blue. The Fabio Vieira one, obviously, the first time that was kind of out of the blue was when it was like they're going to sign. They're going to sign him. He's like flying over, but the actual deal wasn't announced out of the blue. That was a couple of days later. But yeah, the Matt Ryan one was total out of the blue type signing.
Yeah, I don't see it. I think they'd probably rather play.
So you expecting 4 signings this summer? Is that what you're looking at? Because you got not including any youngsters or anything like that. So striker, left winger, goalkeeper, midfielder.
Yeah,
4 signings.
I think
there's room for one more there. Might not be an absolute surprise.
I promise you that.
It might not be an out-and-out surprise, but I think 5. 5's kind of the number that I'm looking at this summer.
I like 5. 5 people are always satisfied with a 5 player.
5's a good round number, isn't it? I think for signings. Yeah. When you get to 5 in a summer window, it's like the pictures look good when you put all 5 together and you got 5 of them there. It seems like you've done a lot of business with 5. So we'll go for that. Maybe an interesting loan or something from abroad that we're not expecting. Something like that. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for today. It's been good to have you back, mate.
Good to be back.
Hopefully everyone has enjoyed. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening as well. I'll be back in the morning to do it all over again in my usual show. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Anything you want me to talk about, get down into the comments, ask the questions. Myself and James will be back next week with our end of season awards and some other Arsenal chat, I would imagine, as well. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.